In our last session, we closed with Esau's pitiful, pitiful attempt at pleasing his dad. And we start in verse 10 of Genesis 28 with the start of the story of Jacob. And Jacob went out from Beersheba and went toward Haran. And he lighted upon a certain place and tarried there all night, because the sun was set. And he took of the stones of that place and put them for his pillow, and lay down in that place to sleep. I will continue by talking about what I wrote. And this is what I wrote to unpack this. See, now starts the account of Jacob. This is the official start of the story of Jacob. Abraham so far was the longest story. Then Isaac was squeezed right in. And now we start with Jacob. Abraham was a man of faith. Isaac was a wimp. I'm sorry. Did I say that? Yes, he loved peace, but he backed down even from righteous fights. That's a wimp in my book. But nonetheless, God honored Abraham and God honored Isaac. And here we have the story of Jacob. These 6 verses in Genesis 28, 10 to 15 tell the story from which our Sunday school song, "We Are Climbing Jacob's Ladder," came. You remember that song, "We Are Climbing Jacob's Ladder."
Yeah, that's exactly what I was
As
thinking.
he was traveling from Beersheba, where home now had been, he became homeless. He was to travel to Haran, 800 kilometers away. And now he had to stop. He had traveled all day. Probably made it about 40 kilometers. 40 miles? Maybe. And Jacob just happened to come to a place to stop for the night. The words say he lighted upon a place. That would imply he arrived there by chance or, by coincidence. You know what? But there are no chance occurrences with God, are there? No. There are divine appointments, divine meetings, and this was a divine place to stay. After making a pillow with the stones around that place, he gathered the stones so he could just lay his head down there just right. He fell asleep and had a dream, in which he saw a ladder set upon the earth, with the top reaching to heaven, and upon it angels of God ascending and descending, and the Lord himself standing above it. It's a vision, folks. If it was real, we wouldn't be seeing anybody on top. I'll tell you why. See, Jacob was at a really low point in his life. In an unbelievably short time, he was transferred from being a homebody to a lone vagabond on the run. To say he was in a discouraged state of mind would be an understatement. He would literally be depressed. So, he had just lied and deceived his own father. Can you believe that? He was having a real guilt trip. But as Jacob was about to find out, hallelujah, Jacob was about to find out there's no place too low where God's grace cannot find you. The ladder or stairway, as some commentators claim, was a visible symbol of the real and uninterrupted fellowship between God in heaven and his people upon earth. The ladder in his dream stood upon the earth, just exactly where Jacob was lying in solitude, poor, helpless, and totally forsaken. Those were the feelings he had. But he wasn't forsaken, was he? Then the Lord spoke as soon as he saw that ladder. And he saw the Lord on top of the ladder. Now, that's why it had to be a vision, because how can you see the Lord on top of the ladder and then see the angels ascending and descending and you're lying down there? Ah! Then the Lord spoke. I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father. Abraham was not his father, but you see, what God was showing him was that his covenant to Abraham was going to be carried down through him. Oh, wow. So I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give to you and your seed. And your seed shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west, to the east, to the north, to the south, and in you and in your seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. And behold, I am with you, and will keep you in every place where you go, and will bring you again into the land. It's all about the land, isn't it? That's what the covenant was all about. For I will not leave you until I have done that which I have spoken of to you. When Moses wrote this account, he attempted to show us the grandeur, the awe-inspiring moment where Jacob was there to see the ladder. Nothing quite captured it like the 4 times he said, behold. That word in the old Hebrew came out like, wow, could anything be greater? Behold a ladder. This was not just any ladder. It was a ladder taller than the tallest building you could imagine. I know, I was looking at the CN Tower in Toronto from the bottom when it was the highest building in the world. Whoa, that was awesome. The World Trade Center before it fell, looking up. Whoa! This ladder was taller than the tallest building you could imagine. Behold, a ladder. The second behold. Behold the angels of God. They were ascending, carrying our requests, and descending with answers. Behold the Lord. Imagine God took time to speak to Jacob in person. He can do the same to you. Finally, behold, I am with thee. God is assuring Jacob with Abraham's covenant and presenting it again brand new. Also in verse 15, the Lord assured Jacob He would watch him and not forsake him. What an awesome God we have! And this reminds me of what Jesus promised to his disciples, and in extension to all of us. I will never leave thee, nor forsake thee. What an awesome charge of comfort he gave us. And in Matthew 28:20, lo, I am with you always, even unto the end of the world. And in some translation it says, even to the end of the age. Folks, isn't that a great comfort?
Amen.
It is a comfort to me. There are times when I thought, oh, it's the end. It's the end. I can't take any more. And suddenly God's presence filled the room where I was. And I heard the still small voice in the back of my head sing, don't you know, I'm always with you. Don't forget it. And if you are a Christian, the same can hold true